The Insurance Brokers podcast is brought to you by Boston Tullis.
Welcome to the Insurance Brokers podcast with your host, Sarah Myerscough. This business podcast is for ambitious brokers determined to grow their business. Our guests are highly experienced industry experts and innovators. This is the place to leverage their success, learn how to break through barriers to growth, and discover a community of support and ideas whilst growing your business.
Good morning, Gary. Thank you for joining me today on the Insurance Brokers podcast. I'm quite excited to have you here because we've podcasted before, which is always enjoyable, but you're in a new role, new stamps to be made, new direction. Do you want to tell us a bit about it?
Yeah, absolutely. Morning, Sarah. Great to be back. Always a good sign if you're invited back somewhere, isn't it? Especially something like this, so must be good. Yeah, absolutely. So I joined Kingsbridge Insurance Brokers, hence the logo behind me. A couple of months ago now. It's really flown by, which has been really great and exciting. I've been talking to these guys for a little bit of time, and it just felt like a fantastic opportunity. Kingsbridge is a great business, well established in the UK market. Kingsbridge Insurance Brokers, which is the bit that I'm the MD of, has been going now for 20 odd years. Set up on the back of a lot of corporate clients a number of years ago, and actually we still look after most of those clients, which is great, and it sort of shows the value and stamp that we put on service as a business. We've still got a lot of staff that have been here a number of years as well, but the business has grown much wider with the Kingsbridge Group in the UK. So Kingsbridge Contractor Insurance, which is our sister company, has exploded over the last few years in terms of growth and development in their space where they operate. And also we've got Dinghy as part of the family in the UK as well, which is a very unique online platform that brings great technology into the group, which we can use and get out there to help our business as well. And I think I said to you before, last year the business was acquired by NSM Group over in the US, which is, I think, the real positive around that is that we've been acquired by an insurance business from the US, not that there's anything wrong with private equity money flowing in the market as it does in not other places, but from my personal perspective, I wanted to be part of a business that wanted to be around for the long term and keep its identity and grow that identity out rather than building it for different reasons.
So I think that's what I'm really interested in to chat around today, because the dynamics within, as you said, Kingsbridge, you've got Kingsbridge Insurance Brokers, you've got KCI, the contractors part, NSM, like you've just said. I think that's a family-owned business, is it?
It's a family-run business, yeah. It's still the same guys have been there at the head of that business for quite some time.
Which is incredible.
Which is great, and it's got a really nice family feel. It's very dynamic in terms of the way that they operate, and obviously it'd be great when we can all sort of meet up again and get, those guys are over here all the time, and we'd be back over in the States to see them as well, and we'll get that back this year hopefully. But very much so, it's that kind of feel. It really is a family kind of feel in the organisation, which is tremendous.
There's quite a lot of different moving parts to the group, which is what I think is quite interesting. And I was on a webinar yesterday with Reuters, the future of the insurance and AI technology, and InsurTech is a buzzword, and it's been around for a long time, and there was a time where blockchain was, the next big thing, real-time databases, being more slick in your processes, and it's been talked about for a long time. But I think over the last 12, 18 months, we are starting to see some explosions in that market, and I've done a couple of podcasts with tech-orientated, process-driven work. Can you tell me a bit about Dinghy? Because I think that's quite an interesting product that you're working on there.
Yeah, well, Dinghy it's a business that's all right. It's still relatively young as a business, but the technology was something that was tremendously attractive to our UK business, but also in the US. So Dinghy joined the Kingsbridge family a little while ago, and when the technology that it uses is their own technology, which I think is really important as well. So we're not sort of going outside of group when we want to make innovative changes and development. So that technology has been taken already from the UK business and replicated and used in a slightly different way out in the US already. So as a real growth area for them. But actually within the Kingsbridge Insurance Broker business, which is, I'd say a more traditional corporate broking environment, we've got schemes and innovative sort of products and DAs, and the way we get to market in some places a little bit different to that traditional way, but we've also got a very traditional insurance business in there as well. And I'm speaking to Rob Hartley that heads up the dinghy business as MD, but is also our group chief underwriting officer in the UK, to look at how we can deploy that dinghy technology on our DAs, on our schemes that we have current and new, so we can find different distribution channels for those. So I think, for us, that's the area, that's the sort of the way that we want to push the business forward on that part, and the non sort of corporate part of our business is really to go down that path of having technology and being able to utilise our own good quality technology and being able to deploy things quickly and innovatively into different distribution channels. Because to grow, I think we don't just want to grow in one specific area. We want to look at what those different opportunities are, both retail, wholesale, and across the piece, really. So having that in group, and I think the key to it is about seeing an opportunity, or having been sat on an opportunity almost, and being able to deploy that really, really quickly. That really does give us the edge over others out there. So I think a fantastic acquisition to the group in terms of the business in its own rights, but also what it'll bring to the KCI business and the Kingsbridge Insurance Brokers family. And
that's got to, I suppose, be one of the elements of your stamp in your kind of new role. And I know we've had conversations about taking one of your specialisms and looking at a sort of a 360-degree view of all distribution opportunities, different market segmentation, and dinghy will play quite an important role in that, won't it?
It will. But as will the other areas, more traditional growth as well. So I think it's hugely important in the marketplace now to be innovative and niche and stick to the things that you're going to grow in areas that you're very familiar with, and actually a lot of the specialisms and the niche areas for us we've had now for 20 odd years, as I say. So we're absolutely embedded in utilities. We've got renewables, we've got quarries, we've got all sorts of different areas that we focus on as a business, and it's how do you grow those out? And again, using technology is going to be one way of doing that. Looking at different routes to market is hugely important. So yeah, absolutely, it's a great tool to have. We've just got to make sure we get to the front of the queue in terms of using it, because everybody wants to get in there and use that technology, which is fine, which is why it was brought into the group.
I tell you what I'm quite interested in. Just in the last month, I've had, as you'd imagine, several conversations. One of the conversations was with Ecclesiastical, and they're doing a lot of research around this generalist specialist idea, and looking at why specialisms can be a great opportunity. I was doing the transcript and writing some content pieces out of a podcast for a client, and that in that particular podcast, the podcastee was saying that they'd looked at this generalist versus specialist idea, and they'd made the conscious decision that generalist was better, and that COVID had actually validated that decision based on the fact that hospitality may have been an area that they would have niched in. So there's so many different views around this. What's yours?
So I think that's a good question. I think when you look at generalisms versus specialisms, I think there's an argument for generalist business without a doubt. I think there are brokers that play in that space and do a very, very good job of servicing the local community, and I think that in itself is almost a specialism, being a community broker and looking after local clients, understanding the local community and the local marketplace and the nuances of that, and that's great. And we're very proud as a business to have a lot of clients in the northwest for our Liverpool business, but also in more towards the southwest with our Tewkesbury based businesses as well. So we do to some extent serve the local community in that way. But I think for me, specialisms and niche is absolutely key to growing your business, to having a plan, to having a roadmap, because how do you build a strategy around we want to just grow locally? It's only so many doors you can knock on. At the end of the day, you're waiting for businesses to appear, or other local brokers maybe to drop the ball, that kind of thing. So I think that the specialist view for me is massively important, and I think the one thing that COVID has taught us is perhaps just not to specialise in one area, because that's the real danger. And if you specialise in one area, we wouldn't have expected to see what we've seen in the last 12 months in terms of COVID. Nobody saw that coming. Nobody saw the impact on the leisure industry and the travel industry and those areas. And I think it's such a shame when you see great businesses, insurers and brokers that are so well knitted to those markets and communities really struggling. It's sad. It's disappointing. They've perhaps had to innovate a bit more, which actually has created a bit more either generalist business because of the need, or different specialisms. But for me, it's around not having all your eggs in one basket. So be specialist, be good at what you do, be focused on what you do, build your brand in those areas, build your reputation, build your relationships. And I think the tough thing about specialist niche business is it doesn't happen overnight. You might be looking to bring in an individual or a team into your business that's got real strengths in those areas that you can get knitted into different areas really, really quickly. But without doing that, it's really tough. And I think you've just got to see it out for the long term. The businesses that I've worked in have been specialists in certain sectors for tens and tens of years in some cases. Not just one or two. So tough to call yourself a specialist too early on. So yeah, it's a good debate to have. My view personally is you have to have a niche, to have a very clear roadmap and know where you want to go as an organisation. And then you sort of you recruit against that, you market against that. All the things that you put into your business, you do against a roadmap that you've got, rather than along the way bringing people in and kind of hoping that you get there. Rifle,
not shotgun.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah. I did a podcast with Brendan McManus, and he said, and I love this quote, he calls his business plans a work of fiction, and sort of when he rolls them out to the exec, the work of fiction. And then the process is what takes the fiction to fact, and all of those little stepping stones that you need to take from A to B to get there. And I remember sitting, the first time I ever met Peter Cullum, he did a little diagram for me, and he put like A, B, step, 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 step. It was in context of a wider conversation, but it was just having that sort of focus, I suppose, the roadmap. I'm here and I want to be here, and that is much easier to do when you've got a niche focus.
Yeah.
I suspect. So no, I think that's really, really interesting.
I couldn't agree more. And I've worked in a Brendan McManus business, and I know about those works of fiction, and it's fascinating, really to do. But you're absolutely right. I think I totally agree. And who am I to question people like Brendan and Peter on what they've done in the industry? So yeah, absolutely. You've got to have a focus, whatever that focus might be. For me, you've got to have a focus to create a clear plan. And like you say, that's probably a lot of different steps to get you to whatever that end goal is. But yeah, specialist for me is really important.
How many plans do you have? So I've spoken to lots of people that have their 1 year plan, their 3 year plan, their 5 year plan, their 10 year plan. I even spoke to somebody that had 1,000 year plan for succession of business, etc., which blew my mind slightly, but he's a billionaire, so who am I to speak? How do you do it?
That's really interesting, isn't it? Wow.
Yeah.
So I have a plan. I have a clear plan, but I think what you've got to think about. So again, in joining a business like Kingsbridge that's got really, really solid foundations, is so deeply rooted in the industries that we operate and we trade in, and also in the in the niches and the communities that we operate in as well, which is great. But we've got a plan for growth. NSM wouldn't have hired me, Kingsbridge wouldn't have hired me without wanting some growth and movement forward. So there's a clear plan around getting there. But I think the point of that is, I look ahead almost in steps of 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, and then the sort of 3 to 5 year view. But you also, you have to be fluid along the way. So you have to think about turning left and turning right slightly, because I think if you're so rigid in your plans, and you're going to miss opportunities, then you might be patting yourself on the back for having grown by 10% in 2-3 years' time. You've had an opportunity to bring in potential acquisition along the way, or a team, or whatever that might be, or miss an area of, a new sort of client area to jump into, and you've potentially missed a chance to double in size or more. So I think whatever plans you have, you've got to be very, very clear about your goals and what you want to achieve, but you've also got to be smart enough to jump onto opportunities along the way. And that's, again, I'm sort of, it's the Kingsbridge NSM show of it today, because I'm new into this business, and it's tremendous to be part of this organisation. The one thing that really appealed to me around it was exactly that view. If you look at the NSM journey and where they've sort of gone over the few years, and acquiring business along the way and changing and tweaking its thought process. We've done the same in the UK with the Kingfisher business, which is sort of sits alongside us, and our own organisation. I mean, in a pandemic last year, with all the challenges going on, and having just been acquired by NSM, the first thing they allowed James, my CEO, to do was acquiring the business. And it's wow, that's not a lot of people thinking about that last year, but it's an opportunity to do something. You have to look at the landscape, think about the challenges that you've got out there, but actually if that makes strategic sense to do it, you've got to jump on those opportunities as well. So yeah, I plan, and I think it's really important to have a roadmap to bring people along. I think it's hugely important that your teams are a part of that roadmap as well. Everybody knows where you want to be as an organisation, what your personal ambitions and growth targets are for the business. And I think you bring people along with you, but again, like I say, you've got to be nimble enough to be able to turn left and right occasionally.
I think fluidity. In fact, I'm going to use the word nimbility, which was a term coined in a podcast I did with Alistair Roberts months ago now, but it's stuck. So the nimbility of to be able to pick up opportunities as they arrive along the way, you should always reflect back on the overall strategic aim. I think. And that's why having the roadmap is with sort of a core objective that heads it up is the top. So the objective is growth.
Yeah.
Does this decision make sense to that? Even if it doesn't follow the steps quite precisely, does this decision make sense to that? And it's quite easy to get lost in the layers rather than just the core fundamentals. So just jumping back to Kingsbridge, you guys have quite ambitious growth aims in some specific sectors. I'm talking about Kingsbridge Insurance Brokers specifically at the moment, and you're looking at multiple distribution methods, and it's very exciting, and that's specifically around organic growth, new business, but you're also looking at acquisitions. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what your roadmap or your sort of strategic objective in that respect is, and why it would benefit somebody to consider Kingsbridge as an opportunity?
Okay, a chance to pitch to people here. Now,
chance to pitch. I always give you a chance to pitch.
So, no, very good. I think the roadmap, again, just going back to what I said, it's early days for me, but I've had numerous conversations, as I was joining in this business around acquisition opportunities and bringing acquisition opportunities in. And actually, we've got a live discussion going on right now about opportunities, simply because there's opportunities will present themselves, and that's I think you've just got to be ready sometimes for things that almost you don't expect. So what we're talking about right now isn't necessarily something that would fit into that end game that we've the roadmap as it's laid out, but it's something that would add a tremendous amount of value potentially to our group. So we look at those kind of things. Acquisition is going to be huge for us. We've got to hit the sort of aims that we have for an organisation. We've got to look at acquisitions along the way. Bringing in people, bringing in teams is great. Single digit growth and whatever else, that's fantastic, but that's not going to get us to where we need to be. So I think a lot of it will be organic through distribution channels that we change and we tweak, looking at our existing products, our existing DAs, our existing portfolio. But there'll definitely be a lot of activity. And I think in terms of why Kingsbridge, for the same reason really that I joined the business, is Kingsbridge Insurance Brokers and the Kingsbridge Group, owned by NSM. It's a different vehicle to a number of those out there right now. And again, far be it from me to critique and criticise other models. But we all know there's a lot of models out there right now that are paying top dollar, people coming into those organisations and knowing full well that in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, you don't know who your bosses are going to be, you don't know what the direction of the business is going to be, you don't know what its ambitions are. They've got different cost models and everything else. Ours is a business owned by an insurance business that has got deep pockets that want to grow its UK organisation, and they know that along the way they're going to have to bring good people in. And the thing about the NSM ownership is they let the teams get on with it as well. And I can only talk for the last couple of months, but talking to the rest of the exco here in the group, we're allowed to get on with it. There's expectations, there's goals, we've got numbers to achieve, but actually they want innovation, they want insurance people to run insurance businesses, and if it's already succeeding, why would you buy a failed business, right? But if it's a successful business, why on earth would you want to make too many changes to that? So you give them support, you give them guidance, you give them potentially, access to wider distribution or different technology, potentially, which again is something we look at in the group. But actually, it's around bringing in the right kind of people, the right kind of skills to be able to grow our business even further. So we wouldn't look to suppress those individuals and that innovation and that skill. It'd be crazy to do so.
It's quite exciting times, I think, for the market. I think challenge opportunity, depending on your perception. And I think there's a lot of movement, there's a lot of changes, there's a lot of sort of thoughts going into the future of insurance, and I think it's quite an exciting time to be in it. I was talking to somebody earlier today about a new MGA that's popping up and done in a slightly different way, and I can't give too much away, but it's so exciting the way the changes are being made. But I think something you've just said there about support is quite critical. One of the things that, again, has come up through some of the podcasts I've been doing and developing for clients is this need for smaller insurance brokers, the independent insurance broker, to develop their own community, their own voice, because that support within that group of brokers is quite critical at the moment when you look at some of the bigger players and some of the sort of big chessboard pieces that are being moved. What do you think about that?
This is a debate that's raged on for years, right? This is a debate that's raged on since, we all saw the early days of the old Towergate model and the consolidator models and people acquiring. I don't think anything's really changed dramatically for me in the last 20 years. I've been working in insurance for 25 years, and most of that, has been bigger companies buying other companies, and what you see is those companies come in, and some people stay in that environment, and some people drop out of that environment, and it starts again. The cycle starts again. People set up new business and whatever else. So I've got a clear voice. So I don't know. I don't think. I think the industry is cyclical, and we're in the sort of space again that we were in a few years ago. Yes, we've got a small amount of a global pandemic that obviously sort of shapes things a little bit as well. But I think there's plenty of arenas for voice. I think there's all the networks and things out there. There's things that we do through Bieber and whatever else. So I don't feel that whether you work for a smaller an independent broker or a larger one, that there's not an opportunity to have a voice. To be fair, I think the industry is pretty good at that, and I think those that need a platform have got them. But like I say, it just doesn't feel a great deal different to what it felt like sort of 10, 15 years ago to me, in that we've just got different names in there that are doing the acquiring right now.
Let me broaden the question. One of the things that I've noticed, and I was having a conversation with my co-director David about this, was this competition over collaboration. And if you go back 20, 30, 40 years, competition was the forerunner. And I think, and I'm not just talking about the insurance industry, I'm talking, much wider, there's a much stronger feeling of collaboration that's coming now. So I've had several conversations with people that may be competitors to what we do, that we're actually setting up a collaboration because it's a lot more open, a lot more transparent. And I think there's a place for that in every part of the world, and embracing it is a good idea. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I look at some of the most successful networks is probably an example of that, where you've got a lot of independent businesses that operate in there, that when the networks do it really well, I think you've got that. You've got that kind of collaboration, that sort of family feel, and I've seen that some do it far better than others, by the way, where you're bringing together individuals, and it's not about competition and compete. You actually are probably sharing a lot of your homework with these other businesses and learning from each other. And I think that does again happen in pockets, really well. I think you've be a scary time to start on your own with no collaboration and no friends out there, without a doubt. So I think any vehicle that's there to be able to bring people together and offer guidance and support. And I think maybe it's just the humanity side of things from the pandemic that's come out of it a bit. That I think people are helping and supporting each other a little bit more. That's been actually really quite nice to see over the last 12 months. So there's various different forums to do that, and I think it's a good point. Maybe I've just always been quite collaborative, so I naturally sort of gravitate towards it. But I think there's always been lots of opportunities to do it, and I think that's one of the things I really value about the industry that we work in. It's about the individuals and the people that that you meet along the way that do offer you support. I mean, I've had a tremendous amount of support coming into this business from people that I guess you would call competitors in some way, shape or form, because they're just good people that you've met along the way. And I think I've said to you before, I sit here right now very proud of working in this industry, and so proud in fact that my kids are actually starting to work in the insurance industry. My daughter is moving into a new role within insurance, which is fantastic. Has offered lots of different jobs because my son's looking at jobs in insurance as well now, and I think that's fantastic. And I've been a big advocate of them coming into this industry, because I think along the way it is about the people, and the collaboration is really, really important.
I'm struck by that in this industry. It's a very close-knit industry. Most people know most people, and there are relationships and communities and support. And I've been, really lucky in the fabulous people I've met and the conversations I've had, and I'm really grateful for that. I think the flip side is true too. There are some political lines that if you don't know, you can walk into accidentally. But that's true of just human nature, isn't it?
It is. No, I think it also teaches you again along the way that just be careful who you fall out with, and think about that. I say 25 years into this industry now, and you think generally speaking, most people I've met along the way, I consider to either be be friends or people I'd love to have a beer with or a chat with, or reach out to support in some way, or get it back in spades. And I think that's a great part of this industry. And I think along the way, just you look after people along the way, and I think you get it back.
I think you're absolutely right. And I'm reading a really interesting book at the moment, which is all about perception and how perception versus expectation can be a cause of fallouts, unhappiness, etc. And I think it's quite interesting when you get into like sociology and human psychology and how we work. So I'm really, really grateful to hear your thoughts, and always love chatting to you. And I wish you all the well in your fabulous new career at Kingsbridge.
Thanks very much, Sarah. It's great to talk to you as always. Cheers.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you have enjoyed what you have heard, have any questions or feedback, please leave us a review and we will be sure to get back to you. If you would like further information on how Boston Tullis Group can support your business, or if you would like to join us on an episode, please do not hesitate to contact us.